Hello, everybody. It is Al Night. It is Brony time, and welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney. When we last left off, we discovered quite the interesting facts. We finished up our investigation, first two parts of our investigation, and we learned some new things. A, that the seaman was not at his post at the night in question, as shown by the ship's log. And we also learned that everyone here pretty much is suffering from some sort of headache or head throbbing, which is no ways unrelated. And now we're kind of here at what I think is the head of this case, where Sholmes will give his final conclusion on what happened the night before. So let's get right back in for this great deduction. Miss Pavlova, moments ago you claimed the following. His death has nothing to do with me. This whole thing is nothing to do with me. Yet you cannot deceive yourself. Yes, when you recall those horrid events, your aching heart smarts with pain. And it is that very pain that evidences your inextricable link to the victim's death. I do not know why the music is not playing here. So, we ask, what was the nature of this intruder that stole into the victim's cabin on that fortuitous night? Why, naturally, it was the friend with which you boarded the vessel, was it not? Hold up, I didn't turn music off. Do we turn it off and then back on again? It's so weird. Why, naturally, it was the friend which you boarded this vessel, was it not? Ah, as I suspected, another telltale glass. Without doubt, your friend is the withering serpent we see before us. And yet, the fact leaves us in a quandary. Oh, please, do tell us what that quandary is, Mr. Holmes. The victim's written observations on the night in question tell of a speckled band. Whereas, regrettably, the specimen's markings do not fit that description in any way. What explanation can we then give, pray? What was this sight that fell upon the victim's eyes last night?
No, don't look at me. This has nothing to do with any of this.
Oh, but it does. You have the answer to this quandary even now, hidden behind your back. Yes, that which you are trying but failing to conceal can only be the snake's sloughed skin. Evidently, after the subtle and horrible crime, this most deadly friend of yours shed its original skin, no?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I totally lost her voice, I'm sorry. Last night, through the ventilator visible in this cabin, your then speckled friend slithered next door. Using the bell cord on the other side as a bridge, the serpent silently descended into the victim's quarters. In the dim light, it appeared to the young gentleman who was about to lose his life as a speckled band. In summary, the nature of this friend of yours, which last night infiltrated the scene of the crime, is a rare breed of snake, whose markings change each time it sloughs its skin. A snake so dreadful, we can only imagine it would be found in the deepest depths of India. Oh hey, the music's back. That was so weird. I don't know why it just stopped. Moving on, we come to the heart of the matter. The grim demise of the victim. How did this young man lose his life, and why? According to the data of which I have been apprised, It would appear there were no visible signs of injury.
Ah,
In fact, the circumstance of the victim's death can only be explained by a terrible venom. Now, if we take that as fact, we can reasonably imagine that there remains evidence to affirm it at the scene of the crime.
oh no, could there be?
Yes, an examination of the deceased body will prove the cause of death conclusively. The almost but not quite imperceptible puncture wounds left by the venomous fangs will seal the truth. Yes, the vestiges of the snake bite delivered by your terrifying friend.
This makes no sense.
There is no point feigning ignorance, Miss Pavlova. After the incident, you endeavored to hide everything, didn't you? But now your involuntary glance betrays the hiding place you chose. That's right, you hid the evidence that links you to the victim's death in that traveling case. When we first met in this cabin, it came to my attention that your case moved periodically. Your serpent's assassin was restless inside, no doubt.
You don't.
It is telling the victim made note of a low whistling sound that he heard minutes before his end. That was your signal, was it not? The sound you would use to train your serpent friend. Guess she's a vampire now.
To train?
Indeed. You put the serpent through this ventilator and wait. After a period, you'd summon it back with a whistle. You couldn't know if the animal had done its duty, so you would listen to the signs next door. Signs of life next door. If the victims appeared not to have been dispatched, you'd have released the snake once more. Do you deny the snake has undergone such training?
It's not true.
Having slithered through the ventilator and down the bell cord, the creature needed only to stick its fangs in once. And its venom would course through the victim's veins, ending his existence forever. That is the true nature of the speckled band that took the poor young man's life. There could be no doubt. My logic is infallible. Thus concludes Sherlock Sholmes' great deduction of the speckled band. Miss Pavlova has trained her pet snake as a killing machine. There on the floor you observe a saucer of milk. The promise of food is the key to training any creature.
Incredible! You solved the mystery.
Amazing. Your great deduction really lives up to its name. See now why Sherlock Sholmes has become such a household name. My dear man, it was nothing remarkable. As the Russians say, I could have done it with one left hand.
Can I venture an opinion, Mr. Sholmes?
But of course, what's on your mind?
It's just about your deductions before. Some things don't quite make sense to me.
I welcome questions as to my method, and will answer both loudly and proudly.
Oh, well, good. First of all, snakes are egg-laying creatures, part of the reptile family.
You are well informed, madam.
And reptiles, don't drink milk.
Ah.
It's really only mammals that like to drink milk, you see. So, I'm not sure it would be possible to train a snake using milk as a reward.
No matter. No doubt Miss Pavlova used some other treat to encourage her pet to do her bidding. Milk was merely an example. The logic holds.
Well, there is something else. Snakes have no ears.
Ah.
Yes, so, I'm not sure it would really be possible to signal a snake by whistling.
But madame, what of the tales from Arabia? Have you not heard of the snakes that dance to the sound of a flute? Which is actually just completely not true. It's actually the flute player playing to the movements of the snake.
I think perhaps performers play their music. Yep. I think perhaps the performers play their music in time with the snake's natural movements.
Oh, I see. No hands, no feet, no ears? These creatures are so inept as to be practically useless!
Don't take it out on the snakes, Mr. Sholmes. There's one other thing.
I love how his biggest fan is just tearing apart his entire deduction. You have more?
Snakes use the scales on their bellies to propel themselves. So, I'm not really sure that a snake could manage to climb up a flat bell cord like the ones in these cabins.
Then it shall try harder!
Please, don't be angry with me, Mr. Sholmes. The point is, even if the snake had gone into the ventilator to the next door cabin, it could have come back without help. What I'm trying to say is that there are a number of reasons why it's difficult to imagine the snake could have had a part in this. I think we need to step in and help again, Mr. Naruto. Oh no, you don't mean... Yes, we need to modify Mr. Sholmes' latest deductions and turn them into the great ones they ought to be. I had a feeling that was coming. Alright, let's give it a try.
Just what I was waiting for. Mr. Naruto!
Yes, right.
So cast your eyes down to your wrists again. What? Like I said, very proud of this animation.
You've done it again! Your handcuffs are gone! Where did they go?
Fear not, I shall see they are restored after our work is done.
I really wish you'd leave them off.
Now, everyone, let us begin. Herlock Sholmes is proud to present his Logic and Reasoning Spectacular.
Hold it, Mr. Sholmes. She does have a pained expression on her face. Yes, that's true. She looks as though Cosmosom's death is weighing heavily on her mind. But you're not sure Mr. Sholmes has read it quite correctly, is that it? Would there be some other way to interpret her expression then? Let's take a moment and really look very closely at Miss Pavlova.
Ah!
Yes!
Yes, when you recall those horrid events, that claw scratch marks with pain.
Indeed, and simple observation reveals that the wound is fresh.
Miss Pavlova, did you in fact receive that scratch? Something last night? Ah! When I think about the young man who died next door, I feel so sad. And when I am sad, the pain from this wound is worse.
And it is that very pain that evidences your inextricable link to the victim's death. So we ask, what was the nature of this intruder that stormed the victim's cabin on that pretentious night? Why, naturally, it was the friend with which you boarded this vessel, was it not? Ah, as I suspected, another telltale glance. Without a doubt, your friend is the writhing serpent we see before us.
It seems likely that the scratch mark on the back of Miss Pavlova's hand was made by this friend of hers, doesn't it? Except snakes don't have claws, do they? No, they don't. They don't even have hands or feet on which claws might grow. Well then, if the snake isn't her pet, what is it? What's the true identity of this friend of hers? We should follow her gaze, Naruhodo-san. That's where we'll find the answer. Ah, look at that photograph in this frame. This must be something Miss Pavlova brought with her when she ran away. She's exceptionally beautiful, isn't she? Yes, that's true, but personally, it's the little black creature she's holding that's caught my eye. Maybe we'd better take a closer look at this. Look at that little cat Miss Pavlova's cuddling here. Oh, what a cute little kitten. It could vie with you, couldn't it, Naruhodo-san, for the blackest outfit? The black kitten, and from the look of this picture at least, Miss Pavlova seems very attached to it.
Yes!
Without doubt, your friend is the little kitten we see before us. Yes, the scratch on the back of your hand makes that abundantly clear.
Oh no!
The whereabouts of this black kitten isn't clear, but what is clear is that you brought the animal with you when you ran away, didn't you?
Ah! Darka is my best friend. I couldn't leave her behind.
Darka would appear to be a Russian blue. And yet, the fact leaves us in a quandary. The victim's written observations on the night in question tell of a speckled bat, whereas regrettably, this specimen's markings do not fit that description in any way. What explanation can we give, pray? What was the sight that fell upon the victim's eyes last night?
No, don't look at me. This has nothing to do with any of this.
Did you see that? She just took something out of her pocket and hid behind her back. If she just left it in her pocket, no one would ever have known. I love how these events play out the same exact way as the event before. Because there was clearly a pause. All this happened at once, then we paused, and now it's just a complete recreation. Like, everyone just goes along with it. Oh yes, ploys like that are Mr. Shom's specialty. He's ever so cleverly forced her to reveal something. Thought deduction was his specialty, or maybe making me believe that was a ploy too. Anyway, I find it hard to believe that that's the skin of a snake. In which case, just what is Miss Pavlova hiding behind her back? Well, it is speckled, and it is a band, but what is it? It seems to be soft and fluffy, a long piece of cloth of some sort. And that looks like a handle at one end. I think it may be a cat's toy. That sort is common in the West, apparently. How is this a toy for cats? Cats like to chase the band around and paw at it. Kittens in particular love that sort of play. You need only wave it in front of them and they pounce to catch it. Haha, that sounds positively adorable.
Yes!
Yes, the thing you are trying but failing to conceal is, a cat's toy. Precisely, and the true nature of the now infamous speckled band. Ah! And it was the toy that you dangled through the ventilator.
You waved it around, I presume. Naturally, the victim could not fail to notice it.
But why? For what reason?
My dear boy, there can only be one answer to that. After her feline friend disappeared through the ventilator into the neighboring cabin, Miss Pavlova attempted to use the speckled cat's toy to incite the creature to return.
Ah.
In summary, the nature of this friend of Miss Pavlova's, which last night infiltrated the scene of the crime, is a blithesome Russian blue breed of cat by the name of Daka. A truly troublesome feline young Daka is proving to be. She must be caged once found. You will forgive us for borrowing the photograph of your pet, Miss Pavlova.
It was after I gave her food last night. That's when it happened. She scratched the back of my hand and then ran up the bill cord. Before I could do anything, she had disappeared to the ventilator. Darka, she is so naughty.
Moving on, we come to the heart of the matter. The grim demise of the victim. How did this young man lose his life, and why? Data of which I have been apprised, it would appear there are no visible signs of injury. Ah!
What Mr. Sholmes says is true. There were no signs of a wound anywhere on Cosmosoma's body.
That's right, but Mr. Sholmes seems to be owner of one very important detail. Cosmo wasn't poisoned.
Yes, it would seem so. Let's give him the information he's missing now.
Yes!
In fact, the circumstance of the victim's death can only be explained by the post-mortem report. Ah, yes, I knew it was one or the other.
His neck was...
Indeed, the breaking of the cervical vertebrae is fatal. Only that Goliath would be strong enough to survive that.
Seaman Stroganoff isn't some immortal freak, you know.
The jury is out. Anyway, we have on good authority that the victim's neck was broken. Now, if we take that as fact, we can reasonably imagine that there remains evidence to reaffirm it at the scene of the crime.
Oh no, could there be?
Cosmo died because his neck was broken. In other words, he was probably struck by something. Or someone.
Yes, that's a distinct possibility. As of yet, no weapon has been found, though. Presumably, Darka didn't silently creep up behind Cosmo and deal him a fatal blow. I suppose it's possible that he had a fall and hit the ground awkwardly. It could have been a terrible act of misfortune that he broke his neck completely by accident. Oh yes, a bad fall could explain it. It's rather hard to believe in Cosmo-sama, though. He wasn't a clumsy man.
Well, we need to fix this deduction somehow. Is there anything from the scene that could explain what happened?
Yes!
Yes, an examination of the mark on the floor will prove the cause of death conclusively. This particular mark, so prominently visible next to the victim's body, is a deposit of shoe polish.
Shoe polish?
Indeed, positively identified by a little analysis device I constructed, which I carry now as a matter of course. Beeswax, tallow, and dye were my results. The undeniable ingredients of shoe polish. and the color of the polish is a perfect match to the color of Mr. Asogi's lace leather shoes. Looking at this mark, it's not hard to imagine what happened. For some reason, Mr. Asogi must have caught his foot at that point on the floor and tripped.
Please, no.
And, by a dreadful turn of misfortune, caught his neck against some immovable object as he fell to the floor. Suffering a fatal blow to the spine, the victim's vertebrae shattered, and in that instant, he lost his life.
No! I don't know. I don't know anything about this.
Is that really true, Miss Pavlova? What about the evidence left at the scene where Mr. Asogi lost his life? Yes, the facts are as clear as day to me. You did all you could to conceal the incriminating evidence. But now your involuntary glance betrays the hiding place you chose. That's right. You hid the evidence that links you to the victim's death in that traveling case.
I don't believe it. Kazuma-sama merely tripped over and now he's no more?
Can't be true. I refuse to accept it. Hey, man. That's what happened to Bob Saget.
I know it's hard to believe, but the mark on the floor does seem to suggest that's what happened.
And if this part of Mr. Sholmes' deduction is right, Miss Pavlova is trying to hide some evidence that could prove it. Here in this cabin. Somewhere in the direction that she just cast her eyes. Where, I wonder? Let's have a good look around. The answer must be here somewhere.
This is a waste paper basket. Perhaps all the first-class cabins have them.
And Miss Pavlova only started occupying the cabin late last night. Presumably there's not much rubbish in there yet. Oh, what's that? It's a broken piece of glass, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I feel like I've seen it somewhere before. If it looks familiar, perhaps it's more than your mind simply playing tricks on you.
Yes!
That's right. You hid the evidence that links you to the victim's death in that waste paper basket.
Ah!
Here we have a fragment of some intricate glass object, it would seem. One that has a familiar air, in fact. Precisely. We found another piece of broken glass on the floor in Mr. Asogi's cabin. As you can see, the two pieces fit together perfectly.
Oh no!
So, Miss Pavlova, shall we consider what this tells us? Why would it be that part of this glass object, which evidently broke at the scene of the victim's death, should be found in the waste paper basket in your cabin?
Yeah!
You're well acquainted with this glass bell, are you not?
I don't...
I don't know. That hush Russian accent of yours won't save you this time, dear girl. Why? Because we have conclusive evidence linking you to the bell in question. What? Take it away, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes. The evidence linking Miss Pavlova to the little glass bell. That would be... the picture.
Yes!
If you look at this photograph, you can clearly see, hanging from Darker's collar, the very glass bell in question. The truth has caught up with you, Miss Pavlova. The young man who lost his life last night did so after a truly inauspicious fall. And the cause of that fateful stumble your absent feline friend, Darka!
I couldn't tell anyone. I'm sorry.
Elementary! There you have it.
Why don't you tell us now, Miss Pavlova? Tell us exactly what happened last night.
It was a little after 1 in the morning. It was so late that I hadn't had time to feed Darka, so I gave her some food. And then, all of a sudden, she scratched me and jumped out of my hands.
People do say that cats become very anxious and nervous in new environments.
She was so fast, she disappeared through the ventilator before I could stop her.
And that is how you acquired the rather nasty wound on the back of your hand, I take it?
Yes, and I had read the rules on the wall. I knew that I was not allowed Darka with me.
Yes, modern science suggests that animals can carry infectious diseases. It's a precaution, really.
So I listened and listened, trying to hear if there was some noise in the next cabin. It was very quiet. I was sure if someone was there, he must be sleeping. So at that point,
you thought it safe to try to lure the kitten back again, by dangling the end of the toy through the ventilator and into the adjoining cabin.
Darka always loves this toy, but it didn't work. Nothing worked. I tried using her favorite toy. I tried whistling to her softly, but nothing. She didn't return.
So the faint whistling sound Casimir wrote about in his diary was Miss Pavlova trying to retrieve her pet. Cats have a propensity to remain hidden in the shadows when frightened.
Yes, so there was nothing else I could do. I just had to wait until she had calmed down. But then... I nearly passed out with shock. I heard her cry out and then... Oh, it was such a dreadful bang. Then afterwards, nothing. It was totally silent.
Casimir was. From the appearance of the brown mark on the floor, it seems likely that what you heard was the victim stepping on the glass bell and tripping up. As Puri is a large vessel, we give a cheek and pitch and roll violently without warning. Mr. Asogi was already off balance as a result of the ship lurching when the kitten got under his feet. A combination of unfortunate factors could easily have caused him to fall over. But what became of the kitten afterwards?
In the end, I managed to get her to come back through the ventilator.
Yet Darka is nowhere to be seen.
I must have forgotten to lock my case, and now she's disappeared again.
Gracious, that cat is insufferably restless as I am. Well, he knows something about himself at least.
When I woke this morning, I heard that a young man in the cabin next to mine had died, but I couldn't bring myself to tell anyone what had happened. I was too scared that they would send me back.
Oh, hold on a minute. What about the snake? You're right. Where is it? The snake isn't your friend, Miss Pavlova, then whose is it, and where did it come from? What on earth is such a dangerous creature doing on board the ship? Oh, I didn't say. Snake is my friend. His name is Piroshko. What? What? That snake belongs to you. He escaped from cage when emergency alarm sounded. I was looking for him. I did not expect to find him in here. Yes, how did the snake get into this cabin? But animals are not permitted on board. Ha! We are at sea for 1 year. You want to be so long without close friend, without someone who understands? Couldn't you find someone a little more human who understands you better? But my dear bully fellow, a gargantuan venomous snake. Surely you can appreciate the danger you're putting everyone in. No venom. Piroshko does not have venom. He is harmless, very long, but very gentle. He is adorable, like Granny. It's venomless? Yes. Now he is hungry, so he is in bad mood. But once I feed him, you will see big smile.
And you feed him what? Milk, I suppose?
Ha! Like they say, may milk chickens ridiculous. Snakes that drink milk are only in stupid stories. Piroshko eats mouses. Big, fat, round mouses. Ah.
Oh, so is that what the mousetrap at the passageway out there is for?
Of course. How else can I catch my friend's favorite food?
Nothing says top of the food chain like the look in their eyes right now.
It refuses to drink milk. It can't hear a whistle. It can't climb up a bell cord, and it's not even venomous. How the deuce did something so inept land a starring role? It is not my fault. Do not make up stories. My Piroshko has nothing to do with this incident.
So that's what happened. That's the truth behind my best friend's tragic death. Miss Pavlova. I understand the difficult situation you found yourself in, but I do sympathize. But please remember this. A young man lost his life. If you're going to attempt to cover up your guilt with lies, then no matter what the circumstances, I cannot forgive you.
What? What are you talking about, Miss Mikatova? What lies? Miss Pavlova just confessed everything. It was just a series of unfortunate events. An accident.
I'm no great detective like Mr. Sholmes. I don't have a gift for knowing the truth. But even I can see that was not the truth. Don't you agree, Mr. Naruhodo? To be perfectly honest, yes. There's a discrepancy in Miss Pavlova's story, I'm sure of it. Just can't quite put my finger on it.
I confess, I was intending to let Scotland Yard deal with any outstanding issues on this matter. Oh? I am only present here for a very specific reason. The truth is, you, Mr. Naruhodo, are simply a distraction. A distraction? I do hope you've not been finding your shackles too uncomfortable.
Not again! Why did you do that?
Especially as they're on your wrists as a result of my intervention. I was rather hoping I could resolve matters before we made our next port call.
You were Mr. Sholmes?
Yes, but I overlooked one important detail.
The deceased young man was a very close companion of yours, was he not? Yes, Cosimo was my closest friend. Out of my freedom, even.
In that case, we must follow this to its conclusion. No further distractions. You must uncover the real truth here, Mr. Naruhodo.
Yes, whatever that may be. The key to this is the discrepancy in Miss Pavlova's story, I'm sure. If I can chase that down, maybe the truth will become clear. The truth about how you really died. And about how that scene in your cabin really came to be. Oh, new track! Alright, I'll see what I can do. Excuse me?
Excellent.
Thank you, Mr. Naruhodo.
So then, shall we begin?
Yes.
What we should ponder first is the victim who lost his life in the cabin that was bolted shut from the inside. Was this truly an unfortunate accident? Or was it in fact no accident at all? That is what we must establish in the first instance. But we've already established it, haven't we? The man tripped over the kitten that had climbed into his cabin via the ventilator. Tragic, yes, but still an accident. Wait, let's just take a step back. It doesn't make sense if that's really what happened, does it? I'm going to have to ask you to spell it out for me, I'm afraid. Yes, it's starting to take shape now. There's clear contradiction between the facts and Miss Pavlova's story here. The evidence is right there in Cosmo's cabin, it's undeniable. His death couldn't possibly have been a mere accident. Really? Let us show our hand, Mr. Hardo. Time to present the evidence. The evidence that proves unequivocally that the victim's death was no mere accident.
Yes!
The truth is clearly recorded in this photographic print. There's no way that Mr. Asogi could have left this message on the floor. That script, it's Russian, isn't it? Indeed it is. The word written means a wardrobe. I see what you mean. Most people would leave a dying message in their native language, Japanese in this case.
But the baby, he was studying Russian. It is a simple language. He could have picked it up very fast.
No, it is not a simple language. That doesn't seem likely. That's actually not the point. It makes no difference whether he knew Russian or not. Sorry? What do you mean? Exactly what I said before. There is no way that Mr. Asogi could have left his message on the floor, and the reason why is clearly explained in here. Damage to the cervical vertebrae resulting in instant death. Instant death. Ugh! Which means, after the victim fell to the floor, he couldn't possibly have written anything, because he was already dead. Oma, Ishindaru. It's not the only reason either. There's something else we found in Mr. Asogi's cabin. A remnant of something that couldn't possibly have been there if what Miss Pavlova told us was true. What? So, Suzato-san has noticed it too, then? Putting this message on the floor aside, there's something else that gives the truth away. Another piece of evidence that proves this was no accident. In other words...
Yes!
This piece of broken glass next to the mark on the floor. That's the glass bell the kitten had around his neck. Really know all about that. It was broken in half when the victim tripped over the cat and fell. So do you have a satisfactory explanation? Where's the flaw in that logic? Unfortunately, there's a very big flaw. A fatal flaw. What? If that's really what happened, then how did one half of the bell end up back here in this cabin? Oh! Yes. Remember that we found the other half of glass. Half of glass bell in that waste paper basket. Would you care to explain that, Miss Pavlova?
Oh no!
Both these pieces of evidence clearly point to the same conclusion. That when Mr. Asogi died last night in his cabin, there was someone else in the room. That same person deliberately arranged the scene to disguise the truth, in order to cover up his or her own guilt. Yeah! Yes, there was someone else present in Mr. Asogi's...
You are wasting time! Someone else was there! Duh! Of course, we know this!
What are you talking about?
Bulkhead was bolted shut from inside. There was no way in or out.
Oh, yes. And only one other person in the cabin when the young student died was you. When the young student died is you. Sorry, see, it's kind of hard to go back from the Russian to the regular. It's true, I was in the cabin when it happened. You were shut inside the cabin wardrobe, to be precise about the details. But I don't know Russian. There's no way I would have left that message. Not would have. There's no way you could have left that message, to be precise about the details.
Would you mind? Ah ha 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 ha! Forgive me, my dear fellow. As I was saying, the person in question wrote the word wardrobe in Russian on the floor, in an attempt to incriminate the crime even though I had been asleep in there the entire time. And then, the same person picked up the broken glass bell that had fallen to the floor, for fear of it becoming evidence that would show how Mr. Asogi really died. But why wouldn't this person have taken all the pieces of the bell away? Leaving Hat behind was going to raise questions. Yes, well, it was past 1 o'clock in the early hours of the morning. The cabin would have been quite dark. The single small lamp suspended from the ceiling would barely have cast any light onto the floor there. Little wonder, then, that the culprit failed to notice a fragment of tiny item.
You all suspect me, don't you?
Seaman Stroganoff?
Nina is woman of the sea. She is daughter of strong sailor. 2 years ago they noticed her dancing skills and she went away to join ballet company. But before she was dancer on the ship, a member of ship's band. You do not accuse Ship's Able of being criminal.
Ah, so that's it.
You say that when the young student died, Nina was there in his cabin. But that's not possible. I give my tooth.
Well, this is almost interesting. And why would you give your tooth, pray? How can you be so sure?
Humph. You are a great detective. You should know. Look truth in eyes. Cabin bulkhead was bolted shut from inside. No one could go into cabin. Not Nina, not anyone. Or you want to tell me the killer can walk through locked doors? Yet, it's impossible.
He's right. But wait, I've read about this in detective stories. People have to tie thread around door latches, so they can open and close them from the outside.
Thread? Are you stupid? These bulkheads are not barred doors.
Certainly not. These are watertight doors, as one would expect to find on any modern steamship, constructed of heavy steel, with not a gap in sight. No threads, needles, or magnets could have been used. No, of course not. I thought so too. Mr. Arhodo suggested earlier, so... Sato-san, how could you shift it onto me like that? So Seaman Stroganoff is a valid point. Cabin door couldn't have been bolted shut from the outside. Not necessarily.
What?
I put it to you that I could bolt this cabin door without laying a finger on it. And in this very cabin, we can see the traces of the method that I have in mind that have been used before. I don't believe it. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, I believe you know what I mean, don't you? Way to shut the bolt of the cabin door from the outside. One way does spring to mind, yes. Do you really know what Mr. Sho means, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes, and so should you. Because we've seen it happen. Indeed we have. So, would you care to do the honors, Mr. Naruhodo? Point out the telling signs of the method that was used to the side of the cabin door bolted across from the outside.
Yes!
Look at the bookcase there. See how all the books and things on it have toppled over? That must have happened when the ship made its emergency stop before. Yes, that's right. It's a very powerful vessel after all. When the engines are thrown into reverse, a violent jolt goes across the entire ship. Any small objects that aren't fastened down are bound to fall over. I believe, yes, it's what's known as the force of inertia, acting on objects. Is there nothing Susato-san doesn't know? Or that isn't in her book at least? Nah, it's a magic book. It's the book of all knowledge. Well, whatever it's called, the same force that pushed over those books on the bookcase also made something else in the cabin move. The bolt on the cabin door. It was very obvious just after the emergency stop that the ship made earlier. We had come into this cabin not long before. We hadn't bolted the door. But then... Hello? Is anybody there? Shout if you need assistance. Oh, that sounds like... Inspector Hosanaga.
Oh, yes! That's it! When the ship stopped suddenly, the bolt flew across and locked the door.
Yes, it's made of metal, but it's small and tight enough to be moved by the ship's sudden change of speed. Or the force of inertia, if you want to call it that.
Oh, are you trying to say that last night, after Mr. Asogi was killed, Lester Bureau made another emergency stop?
When I woke up this morning and looked around the cabin, I thought it looked a little odd. All the books on the shelves had toppled over, and all the ornaments. It was almost as if someone had run their hand across the shelves and deliberately knocked everything over.
Oh yes, I remember that. And I stood them all up again, didn't I?
Then, when we came to this cabin, we were surprised to see the same thing in here. All the books and everything had toppled over, just like in Mr. Asogi's cabin.
Oh my!
Do you have anything to say about this, Miss Pavlova?
Are you out of your mind? You say Brody made the emergency stop. Does seem a little far-fetched. Could that possibly have happened? Unless you're saying that the culprit is actually someone from the engine room.
Oh, it is simple enough. Are you forgetting the button in the passageway outside, used to trigger the emergency alarm?
Oh yes, of course. There was a notice, wasn't there? Telling you only press the button in times of emergency.
On dark nights when the fog is dense, the captain cannot afford to allow the eyes of his lookout alone. Hence the placement of a number of buttons around the vessel to allow the crewmen to raise the alarm. The sort of button one is compelled to press to satisfy one's curiosity.
Wait! It was you?
When the button is pressed, two things happen in the interest of safety. The emergency alarm bell rings, and the vessel comes to a complete stop. As indeed it did a little earlier today. And with that, I'm going to call it right here because we are very much nearing the end of this case, and this is a much lengthier end than case 1. So, well, here we are, where we thought we had the answer, but we overlooked some contradictions that show that just can't be the case, and slowly we're unraveling what actually happens now. And we will conclude figuring that out in the next part, and we will conclude this case. Thank you all for watching. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to Brony Time for more content, especially more of the Great Ace Attorney. Also, make sure to share this video far and wide so more people can discover the series and can join us on this Ace Attorney adventure. As you know, January will be the month of Ace Attorney. I'll be recording exclusively Ace Attorney content, so you can expect an episode of this a day throughout the month of January, and exclusively of this throughout January. And I will see you all next time.